This channel update is a little bit later than anticipated, largely because of all the updates in Elite Dangerous and Microsoft Flight Simulator over the previous weeks. It's kind of delayed me a little bit, but I'm sure most of you are not too worried about that. I hope at least here we are anyway. A bunch of questions to answer in the latest channel update and Q&A video. As always, a big thank you to all the Patreon supporters and YouTube members. You really do make this channel so possible. You help make it what it is. For those of you who are new to the channel or new to these videos, this series is where I'll address a bunch of questions and subjects that are raised by Patreon supporters and YouTube members. And for anyone who wants to join in, you can check out my Patreon link in the video description below, or alternatively, if you want to join in as a YouTube member, just click on that join button below the video. So it seems this month's subjects are largely Elite focused, pretty much exclusively Elite focused actually. Sometimes we have subjects for other space games, sometimes we have Microsoft Flight Simulator subjects, but this time around it seems to be all about Elite Dangerous, and that's totally cool. So let's get on to those questions. We got quite a few here from Mike, so let's start with one there. I'm going to read these out as usual and then let you know my thoughts and feelings about them. On a related note, as you may remember from previous channel update videos, I've been thinking about changing my Patreon tiers and adding additional YouTube membership tiers. After some thought of this, I've kind of decided perhaps not to go in that direction, but instead I do want to mix things up a little bit and add a little bit more value to the support tiers that we've already got. So in addition to what I already do for the channel, I want to add a weekly or perhaps a bi-weekly, maybe 2 a month, little channel updates that we post over on Patreon as well as in the YouTube membership section. So these will be text-based posts. What I want to do is give a week in review type update, or maybe a fortnight in review type update, depending on how often these seem worthwhile doing. So either they'll end up 2 a month or 4 a month, depend on how it goes. That will require a little bit of testing, I think. So yeah, the short of it is these would be in review videos. I would talk about the production, the video production during that period, the highs and lows, the roadblocks I hit, the successes I feel I had, as well as the general events and news going on within the industry around those particular videos. So if that's something that you're interested in, do let me know in the comment section below, or over on Patreon, or even on some of the YouTube membership sections. I'd love to hear back from you. I feel it's just another way of giving some value and thanking you all for your ongoing support. Meanwhile, we've got this space engine footage in the background. It's a bit of rough cut this time because I'd like to give you a bit of behind the scenes of how I go about capturing this type of footage. We've got some nice pans here, but we've also got me running around a little bit trying to find some of those nice, beautiful locations. For what it's worth, I do think Space Engine is absolutely gorgeous. Easily the best space type footage you can get out there. Very, very nice stuff. So yeah, for this video, this footage, it's a bit more of a rough cut than what you're maybe used to, but do let me know if you kind of like this type of footage. I'm using it as a bit more of a behind the scenes type look, so you can see how I go about gathering this type of footage. At any rate, onto those subjects. So, Mike says, Odyssey on foot activities still require an element of combat for all gathering of materials and data. As somebody with the reflexes of a giant oak tree, combat has never appealed to me, and this stands as a barrier to being able to engineer my exploration suits with extra battery and oxygen capacity, and the really useful night vision. Given almost all material and data gathering can be achieved in Horizons without combat, the sole exceptions being Guardian and Thargoid materials, have Frontier indicated that they'll address this at all in a future update for players who don't enjoy and don't want to do combat in the game. Now this is a really interesting subject, and it gets to one of the heart of the core reasons I do have some trouble really getting to grips and enjoying Odyssey. It's not because personally I don't like combat. I am actually a massive fan of first-person shooters. They are one of my favourite genres. I've been playing them for many years, many decades at this point actually, and I really do love them. But as Mike points out here, it's quite possible that Odyssey is a little bit too combat-centric. Now, as far as I know, Frontier have not given any suggestions or indications that they plan on changing the material gathering in Odyssey anytime soon. It does seem to be a bit of an odd design decision, as pointed out. It's in contrast, stark contrast actually, to how it's handled in Horizons. Personally, and perhaps unfortunately, I don't really see how Frontier could change this without making some fundamental changes to Odyssey itself. But that said, there are a few one alternative route at least to getting some of these upgrades. Well, if not direct upgrades, suitable upgrades or comparative upgrades at least, you can get these from Pioneer Supplies. Occasionally, when you go to the stores, you may find enhanced variants of some of the suits and some of the weapons. And this is how I've personally gained the improved weapons and some of the improved suits. Whilst they'll never match a fully engineered suit or a fully engineered weapon, they still do a very good job nonetheless. So for me, that just about cuts what I really need. It just about gets me to what I'm aiming for. It's not really ideal, but it is, kind of an okay compromise. I think Frontier have given some thought to it, and this was perhaps one of the easier solutions for them to implement. I guess we'll just have to see how this unfolds in the future. Moving on to Niels. Hey, I know I've asked this before, but any news as to any updates to the exploration pass? I do not like to shoot innocent NPCs just to get something I want to need, so I'm squarely focused on exploration, but so far it has been very limited in updates in that area. So this question very much related to the topic that Mike addressed previously. As many of you will know, exploration is near and dear to me when it comes to Elite Dangerous. One of my favourite sides of the game. In fact, it is right at the top. It is my favourite side of the game. Unfortunately, Frontier have let it drift a bit over the previous years. They did a nice big update for it, but that last update was way back in 2018, so nearly 4 years ago at this point. Odyssey brought in a little aspect of exploration, allowing us to explore atmospheres, planets with a light atmosphere, as well as some organics down on planetary surfaces. But to be perfectly honest, this is pretty light in the way of content. There's certainly a lot more Frontier could add to make exploration-focused gameplay more interesting, but personally, I just don't see it happening. Possibly not anytime soon, most likely not at all. Yes, unfortunately, that may sound a little bit jaded, but as I say, the last exploration-focused update was 4 years ago, or very nearly 4 years ago at this point. Now, we do know that in 2023, Frontier are overhauling a key aspect of Elite Dangerous, but keep in mind that is singular, not plural, a key aspect, so it will only be one, and I'll be very, very surprised if that turns out to be exploration. So yeah, sorry if that sounds a bit jaded or a bit cynical. It's not that Elite Dangerous doesn't have any good exploration, it still does. After all, just look at the Galactic Exploration Catalogue. A nice little resource run by players, a very good resource actually run by players, that lists and points out a load of fantastic areas that the game actually contains. This is certainly helping to keep exploration alive, as are the numerous exploration-focused videos out there, cinematic videos that we see on YouTube from time to time. All nice stuff, all absolutely great content. So Elite still certainly has it when it comes down to that side of things, but when we're talking about new and upcoming content for exploration, well, unfortunately, I know about as much as the rest of you, which is really nothing. But based on my experience with what we've seen in Elite Dangerous over the previous years, as well as the limited things that I do here, I really don't see anything changing, at least not anytime soon. Moving back to another question from Mike. Is there any word on fleet carrier concourse liveries, and if so, could they be applied remotely for all of us with a carrier out in the black? Black in green for my support carrier Olympus, for a shameless bit of self-promotion to everybody that might want to visit, as the provided ones can only currently be applied when you're physically on board. So another really nice idea. These questions are really difficult to answer actually, because I don't have any insight as to what Frontier are or aren't going to do, but if I was going to guess, this one seems more likely to happen than any other type of update such as gameplay. Frontier definitely seem very keen on keeping anything to do with liveries up to date, so yeah, who knows, this might well certainly be possible in the future. Meanwhile, in something kind of related but also unrelated, there is a mod out there that allows you to customize the interior look of your spaceships on PC. I'll list this in the video description. I haven't tried this out myself just yet, but I have seen a few people mention it out and about on the internet. So yeah, try it out with care for the meanwhile, but just letting you know that something that does exist. Now, Brooks says if you were placed in a position of game director for Elite Dangerous and only had the resources and ability to focus on one major change, what would you change in the game and how? Well, based on what we've heard already in this video and what I've already been discussing, I think you all know exactly where I'm going to go with this question. Of course, it would be exploration. To start with, I'd like to see planets overhauled and improved. That's something perhaps not too dissimilar to what we're seeing with Space Engine in the footage on the screen here. Space Engine is absolutely gorgeous when it comes to both space visual effects as well as planetary effects. Very, very nice stuff out here. Although Elite Dangerous, of course, is much better when you get down to planetary surfaces, but nonetheless, this is truly beautiful stuff here. So that's one thing I'd like to see improved, the visuals. Another thing would be the introduction of new space-based phenomena. So this would be comets. I'd also like to see supernova as well as rogue planets. That would be so-called dark systems. I'd also like to see Grecian disks added to black holes, as well as the ability to enter the atmosphere of gas giants, at least the very top layer of gas giants. Now, all of these could have gameplay added to them. I've spoken about them in the past. Scoop in chemicals and gases from the atmosphere of gas giants, analysing and collecting samples from comets. There's loads of different types of gameplay that could be added. Additionally, I'd like to see more done with colonization, so players going out and discovering potential Earth-like candidates and then them maybe getting colonized at some point in the future. Lots to be added for sure, no doubt huge vast amounts of work, but the beauty of Elite Dangerous is that it exists in a galaxy and a world that is absolutely chock full of potential. We then move back to Mike for one final question. With David Braben stepping down as CEO of Frontier after a pretty horrible 12 months for the company with the problematic launch of Odyssey, could it be that the majority shareholders forced him to leave because they want a far better return on their investment? If so, might it signal they want all in on Elite Dangerous, or might they be prepared to end the game if they think it's just going to be a money sink and greater profits can be made by focusing on other games? In my experience, CEOs rarely step down this suddenly unless they're being forced out. Now, this is a really interesting point. Personally, it's very hard to kind of guess or speculate on what went on here, and I don't really want to speculate too much, but I don't get the impression that David Braben was forced out here. You know, I think the real reason could just be a lot more simpler than that. After all, David Braben is approaching 60 now. So it could be as simple as that. We've got a semi-partial retirement here. Taking on the new position, the new role of president, allows him to remain hands-on with the company, whilst at the same time stepping away from some of the harsher responsibilities that a CEO might traditionally have to deal with. Now, I do know Johnny Watts, the new CEO. I've spoken to him many times over the years, and I can tell you that he is a huge fan of Elite Dangerous, massive fan of the franchise and the series. Obviously, I can't speak for Johnny Watts. I don't know what he's thinking and what his goings-ons are. I haven't actually spoken to him for quite a long while now at this point. But that said, I'd be very surprised if he would allow the plug to be pulled on the game. As I've said many times in the past, I've said it in my Elite Dangerous, is it a sinking ship video? And I've said it in the Elite Dangerous, is it a dying game video? No, I don't think it's a sinking ship, and no, I don't think it's a dying game. I think that a lot of people felt that way because of the poor direction that it was heading in over the past 12 to 18 months. But likewise, that doesn't mean we're going to get huge big expansions in the future. It doesn't mean we're going to get another Odyssey-styled expansion. But who knows? The future remains very much unknown when it comes to Elite. What we do know is that Update 14 is going to be big, and that Frontier do have plans for 2023. Whether those are big plans or somewhat on the smaller size, we're just going to have to wait and see. But for now, it does look as though Elite Dangerous is in very good hands. The Elite Dangerous community managers are good. It's actually perhaps among the best it's ever been when it comes to that. And there's also plenty of stuff going on with the game right now. So plenty for people to be happy about. And there's the console transfer recently as well. Of course, that's not going to be a great option for absolutely every single console player, but hopefully it does help out more than a few. Whether or not people feel that makes up from all the mistakes Frontier have made over the years, well, that is going to be a subjective question and very much a personal point of opinion. But to address your point there, I don't think David Braben stepping down as CEO of Frontier is going to have any impact on Elite Dangerous one way or the other. And finally, on a light note, a question from Civilian over in the Discord channel. Civilian wants to know whether, well, this go on. This is partially a joke and yet also not a joke. Has the inclusion of night vision in Elite Dangerous ever left you wondering what gameplay purpose there is for having ship, SRV, suit lights and night vision? When lights are off, you're still detectable. If you have night vision on, what need is there for lights? Well, yeah, kind of an interesting question, a funny one as well. I think they just serve the same sort of role, just in different ways. Having the lights can be pretty neat, pretty handy when you're down on dark planets as well as on the dark side of objects. So yeah, they really both serve different practical purposes. If you're talking about specific gameplay purposes though, as in are they useful for a specific gameplay loop, then neither of them really seem to fit that type of function. They're more on the practical side of things, just allowing you to see in the dark. So yeah, another way of looking at this question is perhaps could Frontier make a suitable gameplay loop for these two practical effects? Could be pretty interesting if they did. So there we have it, and that's all the questions and subjects for the latest edition of these Q&A videos. Do get them coming for future videos. I really do enjoy making these types of things, so looking forward to doing more in the future. Meanwhile, let me know what you think of the idea of the week in review or fortnightly review idea that I suggested for Patreon and YouTube members at the start of the video. Again, this would be an exclusive text-based update, maybe with some images, maybe with some short video clips that I include in under the private section for Patreon members and YouTube supporters. So yeah, let me know on that. Really, I would love some feedback. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.